Margaret Hayes clutched the faded photograph in her trembling hands, her eyes widening in horror as the room spun around her. It was 2002, 20 years after that fateful day, but the image brought it all rushing back. The laughter of children, the rumble of the school bus, and then nothing. Silence. Her son, little Benjamin Hayes, beaming in his light blue uniform, stood in the front row with his classmates, their faces frozen in innocent joy. But there, in the background, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The school bus sign read "School Bus" with an extra O, a detail no one had noticed back then. Margaret's heart pounded. This wasn't just a typo. This was the clue that shattered everything she thought she knew about the day her world ended. If that chill down your spine has you gripped, smash that like button right now and subscribe for more heart-stopping tales that uncover the unimaginable. Turn on notifications so you never miss a reveal like this. Back in the spring of 1982, in the quiet town of Willow Creek, Illinois, life moved at a gentle pace. Families knew each other by name, kids played in the streets until dusk, and the local elementary school was the heart of the community. Margaret Hayes was a devoted mother of two, working part-time at the town's bakery while raising Benjamin, her energetic 8-year-old, and his older sister, Lila. Benjamin was the light of her life, curly-haired, always curious with a knack for drawing spaceships and dreaming of adventures beyond their small world. That year, Benjamin's third-grade class at Willow Creek Elementary was buzzing with excitement. Their teacher, Ms. Clara Benson, a kind but firm woman in her 40s with a passion for history, had organized a field trip to the nearby Lincoln Museum in Springfield. It was a big deal for these kids. Most had never left the county. 22 students, including Benjamin, piled onto the yellow school bus on a crisp May morning, waving goodbye to parents gathered in the parking lot. Margaret stood there, camera in hand, snapping a group photo before they boarded. She captured them all lined up, boys and girls in matching light blue polo shirts and navy shorts or skirts, Ms. Benson and the bus driver, Mr. Harold Jenkins, flanking the group. The bus loomed behind them, its sign gleaming in the sunlight. "Be good, Benny," Margaret called out, her voice light but laced with that universal parental worry. Benjamin flashed her a toothy grin and climbed aboard, the engine roaring to life. The bus pulled away, heading down the rural highway toward the interstate. That was the last time anyone saw them. Hours ticked by. The museum staff reported no arrival. Calls flooded the school office. By noon, panic set in. Sheriff Daniel Croft, a no-nonsense veteran with a mustache that hid his constant frown, mobilized search teams. Helicopters buzzed overhead, volunteers combed the woods along the route, and divers scoured nearby rivers. But there was no wreckage, no skid marks, no signs of struggle. The bus, the children, Ms. Benson and Mr. Jenkins had simply vanished into thin air. Margaret's world shattered. She remembered collapsing in her kitchen when the sheriff knocked on her door. "Mrs. Hayes, we're doing everything we can," he said, his eyes avoiding hers. But days turned to weeks and hope faded. The national news picked up the story. The vanishing class of Willow Creek, splashing photos of the missing kids across screens. Theories swirled. A mass abduction by a cult. A tragic accident covered up by fog. Even wild whispers of something supernatural. But no leads. No ransom notes. Nothing. Margaret couldn't sleep. She replayed that morning over and over, staring at the photo she'd developed. The one now clutched in her aged hands 2 decades later. Back then, she'd handed copies to investigators, but they saw nothing unusual. Just smiling faces and a school bus. She joined support groups with other parents like the Larkins, whose son Tommy was Benjamin's best friend, or the Ramirez family, grieving their daughter Sophia. They held vigils, lit candles, but the emptiness grew. As months passed, the town changed. Willow Creek became synonymous with mystery, drawing curious tourists and conspiracy theorists. Margaret threw herself into searching, driving the highway routes herself, posting flyers in distant towns. She even consulted psychics desperate for any hint. One claimed to see water and shadows, but it led nowhere. Lila, her daughter, grew up in the shadow of loss, resenting the brother she barely remembered but whose absence defined their home. Years blurred. Margaret aged, her hair turning silver, her steps slower. She kept Benjamin's room untouched, a shrine to what was lost. The photo sat on her dresser, a daily reminder, until that day in 2002, when she picked it up during a routine dusting. Her eyes, sharper than ever in her grief-honed vigilance, caught the bus sign. School bus, an extra O. How had she missed it? The school's buses were standard issue, spelled correctly. This wasn't their bus. Heart racing, Margaret dug through old boxes, pulling out newspaper clippings and police reports. The official bus assigned that day was number 47, but in the photo, the number was obscured by kids. She called Sheriff Croft, now retired, his voice gravelly over the phone. "Margaret, it's been 20 years. Let it rest." But she wouldn't. She scanned the photo into her new computer, a gift from Lila, and zoomed in. The bus's paint looked fresh, but the model seemed off, slightly older than the fleet. Curiosity burned. She visited the old school garage, now abandoned, and rifled through dusty records with the help of a former mechanic, Mr. Earl Thompson. "Yeah, our buses were all school bus, no mistakes," he confirmed, squinting at the enlarged print. "This looks like it was tampered with." Tampered? By whom? Margaret's mind raced. What if the disappearance wasn't an accident? What if someone had switched the bus? She remembered Mr. Jenkins, the driver, a quiet man who'd worked for the district for years, but rumors said he had debts, gambling problems. And Ms. Benson, always so organized, but she'd seemed nervous that morning, adjusting her tie repeatedly. Driven by this thread, Margaret contacted a private investigator, Rita Klein, a sharp woman from Chicago specializing in cold cases. Rita examined the photo. "This extra O, it's not a printing error. Look at the font, it's hand-painted over." They pored over maps, tracing alternative routes. What if the bus never intended to go to the museum? As they dug, fragments emerged. A witness from 1982, a farmer named Gus Harlan, had reported seeing a yellow bus detour onto a back road, but investigators dismissed it as unrelated. Rita tracked Gus down. He was in a nursing home but lucid. "Yeah, it turned toward the old quarry," he recalled. The quarry? Abandoned, filled with water. A place kids were warned to avoid. Margaret's pulse quickened. Could the bus be there, submerged? But searches back then found nothing. Rita suggested advanced sonar, but costs were high. Undeterred, Margaret rallied the remaining parents, pooling funds. The town buzzed again, old wounds reopening. Diving teams arrived weeks later. As equipment hummed, Margaret stood on the quarry's edge, photo in hand. Bubbles rose. Then a shout, "We got something." Metal glinted below. But it wasn't Bus 47. It was a different vehicle, painted yellow with faded letters. School bus. Inside, no bodies, just staged props like backpacks and lunchboxes. Confusion hit. If this was a decoy, where were the real bus and the children? The discovery exploded the case wide open. FBI agents descended, re-interviewing everyone. Ms. Benson's background revealed a hidden past. Born Clara Whitaker, she'd changed her name after a family scandal involving embezzlement. And Jenkins? His bank record showed large deposits days before the trip. Margaret's clue had unraveled a thread leading to a shocking possibility. The vanishing was orchestrated. But why? For ransom? Revenge? As agents probed, a name surfaced, Victor Lang, a wealthy businessman from Chicago with ties to Benson's family. Lang had lost a fortune in a bad investment and blamed the town for some old grudge. The investigation deepened. Margaret, now the unlikely hero, felt a mix of hope and dread. Were the children alive? Hidden away? The photo's missing piece had ignited a fire, but the truth loomed darker than imagined. Margaret Hayes stood frozen by the quarry's edge, the cold wind whipping through her gray hair as divers surfaced with more findings from the submerged bus. The staged props, backpacks, lunchboxes, even a crumpled class list, felt like a cruel mockery. Her mind raced, the photo trembling in her grip. That extra O on the bus sign had cracked open a mystery she never imagined, and now it pointed to a conspiracy far beyond Willow Creek. FBI agent Laura Dunn, a no-nonsense woman with a sharp jawline and sharper instincts, took charge, her team combing the wreckage for clues. "This was a setup," Laura said, her voice steady but edged with urgency. "Someone wanted us to find this and stop looking. If this twist has your heart pounding, smash that like button right now and subscribe for more jaw-dropping updates. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you're first to know what happens next." The discovery shifted everything. The real bus, number 47, was still missing, along with Benjamin, Tommy, Sophia, and the other 19 kids, Ms. Benson and Mr. Jenkins. Margaret's hope flickered. Maybe they weren't in the quarry after all. Rita Klein, the private investigator, worked late into the night, cross-referencing Victor Lang's movements with the day of the disappearance. Lang, a shadowy figure with a mansion in Chicago, had a history of shady deals, and his connection to Clara Benson, Ms. Whitaker, grew stronger. Old court records showed Benson's father had swindled Lang years ago, fueling a vendetta. Could this be revenge? Margaret couldn't shake the image of Benjamin's smile. She remembered his last words. "I'll bring you a museum rock, Mom." Now she wondered if he'd ever had the chance. The town buzzed with renewed energy. Parents like Mrs. Larkin, Tommy's mom, joined Margaret at the quarry, clutching faded photos of their own. Mr. Ramirez, Sophia's father, paced angrily, demanding answers. The community, once fractured by grief, united again, their shared pain a bond. Agent Dunn's team found paint scrapings on the Decoy bus matching a batch used by a Chicago auto shop owned by a Lang associate. A warrant was issued, and raids uncovered ledgers hinting at a plan. A fake bus to mislead, a real one rerouted. But to where? Rita suggested a hideout, perhaps an old warehouse Lang owned near the Illinois River, 30 miles from the detour Gus Harlan had seen. The theory gained traction when a trucker, Dale Morrison, came forward. He'd been hauling freight in 1982 and recalled a yellow bus parked near that warehouse late that May afternoon, its windows blacked out. The FBI moved fast. Helicopters buzzed overhead as they stormed the site, now a crumbling relic overgrown with weeds. Margaret insisted on going, her resolve ironclad. Inside they found dust-covered desks, rusted chains, and a faded timetable, May 12, 1982, the day of the trip. But no bus, no children. Laura's face tightened. "They moved them," she muttered. A hidden trapdoor led to a basement where faded chalk marks on the wall spelled "Help" in a child's handwriting. Margaret's knees buckled. Was it Benjamin's? The lead deepened the mystery. Forensic teams dusted for prints, finding matches to Jenkins and Benson, confirming their involvement. Lang's financials showed a payment to Jenkins days before, suggesting a bribe. But why take the kids? Ransom seemed unlikely. No demands ever came. Laura theorized it might be leverage, a way to force someone in Willow Creek to pay a debt tied to Benson's family scandal. Margaret clung to the hope that her son was alive, hidden somewhere, waiting. Days turned to weeks. The investigation spread, interviewing Lang's former employees. One, a janitor named Paul Decker, broke under pressure. "I saw kids once," he stammered, "in a barn upstate." Lang said they were guests. The barn, on Lang's rural property near Rockford, became the next target. Margaret rode with Laura, her heart in her throat. The property was desolate, its barn sagging under years of neglect. Inside, they found old mattresses, toy cars, and a broken recorder with a child's voice reciting a poem, Benjamin's favorite, "The Owl and the Pussycat." Tears streamed down Margaret's face. The evidence suggested the children had been there, but how long? And where were they now? A hidden compartment revealed a map with coordinates, marked with a shaky hand. Laura's team triangulated it to a remote cabin in Wisconsin near Lake Superior. The chase intensified. Margaret's exhaustion battled her determination. She thought of Lila, who'd stayed home, silently supporting her mother's quest. The cabin raid was tense. Armed agents surrounded the structure, its windows boarded up. Inside they found supplies, canned food, blankets, but no people. A radio crackled with static, and a logbook listed dates from 1982 to 1985, noting deliveries and relocations. The children had been moved again, possibly sold or hidden further. Lang's trail led to Canada, where he'd fled after the initial disappearance using aliases. Margaret's clue had sparked a nationwide hunt. The photo's extra O had unraveled a web of deceit, but the end remained elusive. Laura promised to keep searching, her team now tracking Lang's offshore accounts. Margaret returned to Willow Creek, the photo her anchor. She whispered to it nightly, "Hold on, Benny, I'm coming." Margaret Hayes sat by her kitchen table, the photo of Benjamin and his classmates resting under a dim lamp, its edges worn from constant handling. The cabin raid had left her with a flicker of hope and a storm of questions. Agent Laura Dunn's voice echoed in her mind. "They were moved, Margaret. We're close." The logbook states 1982 to 1985, hinted the children might have survived those early years, hidden in that Wisconsin cabin. But where had they gone next? The map's shaky coordinates and the radio's static fueled her resolve. She couldn't stop now. If this hunt for the truth has you on edge, smash that like button right now and subscribe for more gripping twists. Turn on notifications to stay updated on every breakthrough. Back in Willow Creek, the town held its breath. News of the cabin spread, reigniting old fears and new possibilities. Margaret rallied the parents again, their faces etched with exhaustion but determination. Mrs. Larkin clutched Tommy's old baseball glove, Mr. Ramirez carried Sophia's school sketchbook, and together they pressured the FBI for faster action. Laura's team traced the deliveries in the logbook to a shipping company linked to Lang's Canadian network. A former employee, Janet Poole, recalled unloading crates near Thunder Bay in 1985, crates that moved oddly, as if alive. The lead pointed north. Margaret packed a small bag, insisting on joining Laura's team. The drive to the Canadian border was silent, the weight of 20 years pressing down. At Thunder Bay, investigators uncovered a warehouse, its concrete floors stained and its air heavy with neglect. Inside, they found rusted chains and a child-sized shoe, its sole worn thin. Margaret's breath caught. Could it be Benjamin's? Forensic tests confirmed it matched the 1982 school uniform fabric, sending chills through the group. The shoe sparked a breakthrough. Janet remembered a boat, the Northern Star, docking that year, its crew paid in cash by a man matching Lang's description. The boat's logs, retrieved from a maritime archive, showed trips to a remote island in Lake Superior. Wolf Island, uninhabited and shrouded in fog. Laura's team chartered a vessel, and Margaret stood at the bow, the photo pressed to her chest. The island loomed ahead, its trees dense and unwelcoming. Landing was treacherous. The team hacked through undergrowth, guided by a signal from a buried transmitter, likely planted during the relocations. Deep in the woods, they found a bunker, its door rusted shut. Breaking it open revealed a dank room with bunk beds, a chalkboard, and faded drawings, stick figures holding hands, signed with childlike scrawls. One read, Ben H. Margaret's knees buckled, tears streaming. Was this his? Evidence piled up. A recorder held a snippet of a boy's voice reciting numbers, possibly a code. Laura's tech team analyzed it, suspecting it was a distress signal. The bunker's logs, written in Benson's hand, detailed a plan. Keep the children isolated, educate them minimally, and await instructions from Lang. But the entry stopped in 1987. What happened then? Had they been moved again, or worse? A hidden compartment yielded a letter, addressed to Clara, signed VL. It demanded silence and promised payment, hinting Lang had abandoned the scheme. The children might have escaped, or been taken by others. Margaret clung to the escape theory. Benjamin was smart, resourceful. Maybe he'd led them out. Laura's team found footprints leading to the shore suggesting a boat departure, but no further trace. The island search expanded. Divers scoured the lake, finding a sunken rowboat with 1980s markings. It wasn't enough. Margaret returned to Willow Creek, her hope fraying but unbroken. She posted the bunker drawings online, pleading for tips. Responses flooded in, sightings of wild-haired kids in northern towns, rumors of a lost tribe. One caller, a fisherman named Roy Ellis, claimed he'd seen a boy matching Benjamin's description in 1990, near Duluth, asking for help. Laura's team chased the lead, but it faded into dead ends. Margaret refused to give up. She visited schools showing the photo, asking if anyone recognized the faces. A teacher in Duluth, Mrs. Helen Grant, recalled a quiet boy in 1992, new to town, who drew spaceships, Benjamin's passion. He'd vanished after a month. The trail was cold, but Margaret's clue had stretched it further than ever. Margaret Hayes sat in her living room, the bunker drawings spread across the coffee table, each scribble a lifeline to her son Benjamin. The teacher's memory from Duluth, Mrs. Helen Grant's quiet boy with a love for spaceships, burned in her mind. It was 2003 now, and the trail, though faint, felt warmer than ever. Agent Laura Dunn had promised to dig deeper, her team cross-checking school records and missing persons reports from the early 1990s. Margaret's photo, that cursed yet blessed clue with its extra O, had led her this far. She couldn't let it end here. If this relentless search has you hooked, smash that like button right now and subscribe for more unraveling mysteries. Turn on notifications to catch every new clue as it drops. Back in Willow Creek, the town buzzed with renewed whispers. The bunker discovery on Wolf Island had reignited hope, and Margaret's online plea brought a flood of tips. Most were dead ends, crackpots claiming alien abductions or sightings of ghostly buses, but a few stood out. A truck driver, Sam Carter, contacted Laura, recalling a group of scruffy kids hitchhiking near Duluth in 1991, one with curly hair and a sketch pad. Another, a nurse named Evelyn Hart, remembered treating a boy with a scar on his arm, matching Benjamin's childhood injury from a bike fall, in a Minneapolis clinic in 1993. The pieces were scattered, but they formed a pattern. The children might have scattered across the Midwest after escaping or being abandoned. Margaret traveled to Minneapolis, her determination steeling her against the ache in her bones. She met Evelyn at the clinic, a kind woman with tired eyes. He was about 16, shy, said his name was Ben. Evelyn recalled. He had no ID, just a drawing of a bus with an extra O. I thought it was odd. Margaret's heart raced. The drawing, could it be Benjamin's way of leaving a mark? Evelyn had noted his scar and a faint accent, possibly from isolation. She'd reported him to social services, but he'd vanished before they arrived. Laura's team pored over social services records, finding a brief mention of a John Doe matching the description, placed in a foster home in St. Paul. Margaret and Laura drove there, meeting the foster mother, Mrs. Irene Walsh, a stout woman with a warm smile. We had a boy named Ben for a few months in '94, she said. Quiet, smart, always drawing. He ran off one night, said he had to find his family. Irene handed over a sketch he'd left behind, a spaceship with Ben H. scratched in the corner. Margaret clutched it, tears blurring her vision. It was his style, his soul on paper. The lead pushed them forward. Irene mentioned Ben had asked about Willow Creek, hinting he knew his origins. Laura traced bus tickets purchased around that time, finding one to Chicago, dated October 1994. Margaret's pulse quickened. Chicago was Lang's territory. Had Benjamin gone to confront him, or seek answers? The FBI raided Lang's old properties again, finding a locked safe in his abandoned office. Inside was a ledger listing payments to C.W., Clara Whitaker, through 1987, then nothing. A photo fell out. Benjamin, older, standing by a lake, his face thinner but recognizable. The date stamped on the back read 1995. Shock hit Margaret like a wave. Lang had kept tabs on him. Why? Laura theorized Benjamin might have been a bargaining chip, his survival a secret leverage. The photo's location, Lake Michigan's shore, led them to interview locals. A fisherman, Tom Ridley, recalled a young man matching Benjamin's description working odd jobs in 1996, asking about a yellow bus mystery. He'd disappeared after a storm, leaving behind a notebook with coordinates, near Green Bay, Wisconsin. The team raced to Green Bay, finding an old boathouse. Inside, they uncovered a rusted trunk with Benjamin's initials carved into it, filled with drawings and a journal. The entries, written in a hurried hand, spoke of escape from the island, a group of kids splitting up, and a promise to return for his mother. The last page, dated 1997, mentioned a man in a suit, possibly Lang's associate, chasing him. Then silence. Margaret's hope soared and crashed. He'd been alive, fighting to come home. Laura's team tracked the suit lead to a retired enforcer, Gary Holt, now in a nursing home. Gary, frail but lucid, admitted to trailing the kid for Lang, losing him near Green Bay. He was clever, Gary muttered. Slipped into the woods. The journal suggested Benjamin had allies, maybe other kids, who helped him evade capture. The search widened. Margaret posted the journal sketches online, sparking more tips. A librarian in Green Bay, Mr. Leonard Fry, recalled a man in 1998 asking for old maps, leaving a drawing of a bus. His description matched Benjamin's adult features. The maps pointed to a remote cabin in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Laura's team moved in, finding it abandoned but stocked with recent supplies, canned goods dated 2002. Footprints led into the forest, too faint to follow. Margaret refused to quit. She stood in that cabin whispering Benjamin's name, the photo her guide. The clue had brought her to the edge of reunion or heartbreak. Laura promised to keep searching, her team now scouring northern states. Margaret returned home, the journal her new treasure, vowing to find her son. Margaret Hayes sat in her dimly lit living room, the journal from the Michigan cabin open on her lap, its pages filled with Benjamin's scrawled hopes and fears. It was late, the clock ticking past midnight on August 27, 2025, and the weight of 23 years pressed down. The recent footprints in the cabin, the 2002 canned goods, they hinted Benjamin might still be out there, alive, evading the shadows of his past. Agent Laura Dunn's voice crackled through the phone earlier that evening. We're close, Margaret. The team's narrowing down the forest leads. The photo with its haunting extra O had guided her this far, and now the journal's final clue, a map sketch with a circled lake, felt like a beacon. If this emotional journey has you captivated, smash that like button right now and subscribe for the latest updates. Turn on notifications to be the first to hear the outcome. The circled lake on the map was Lake Huron's northern shore, a rugged wilderness rarely visited. Margaret's heart raced as Laura's team planned a final sweep. Enlisting local rangers and search dogs, she insisted on joining, her frail body fueled by a mother's love. The helicopter ride was tense, the forest below a maze of green and shadow. As they landed, the dogs picked up a scent, leading them to a hidden cave. Inside, they found a makeshift shelter, blankets, a fire pit, and a carved wooden figure of a spaceship, Benjamin's signature touch. Tears streamed down Margaret's face. A note pinned to the blanket read, "Mom, I'm safe. Waiting." The handwriting matched the journal, her son's. Laura's team scoured for more, finding a recent footprint in a wrapper dated 2025. He was here recently. The cave opened to a trail, and the dogs barked excitedly, pulling them toward the lake. Margaret's legs trembled, but she pushed forward, the photo clutched tight. At the shore, a figure emerged from the mist. A man, lean and weathered, with curly hair streaked with gray. His eyes met Margaret's, wide with recognition. "Mom." The word broke the silence, and she ran, collapsing into his arms. It was Benjamin, older, scarred, but alive. He'd escaped the island in 1987 with a few others, surviving in the wild, moving north to avoid Lang's men. The journal chronicled his journey, hiding, working odd jobs, always planning to return. Lang's associate had tracked him until 1997, but Benjamin had outsmarted them, living off the grid. He explained the group had split up after the island, some blending into society, others lost to the wilderness. He'd stayed hidden, fearing reprisal, but the online drawings Margaret posted had given him courage. "I saw your plea," he said, voice hoarse. "I had to come back." The extra O on the bus, he revealed, was a prank by Jenkins altered to signal a detour, part of the plan he'd overheard. It had saved him, ironically, by leaving a clue. Laura's team secured the area, ensuring no threats remained. Benjamin recounted nights of terror, Lang's men closing in, the death of a friend who'd helped him escape, but also moments of resilience, teaching himself survival from books scavenged in abandoned towns. He'd built the cave shelter years ago, returning periodically, always watching for a safe moment to reunite. The reunion was bittersweet. Other children's fates remained unknown. Some might be alive, others not. Laura promised to use Benjamin's testimony to reopen the case, targeting Lang's network. Margaret held her son, the photo now a symbol of triumph. They returned to Willow Creek, where the town greeted them with tears and cheers. Mrs. Larkin and Mr. Ramirez clung to hope, spurred by Benjamin's survival to search for Tommy and Sophia. Margaret's journey ended where it began, her home, now filled with Benjamin's laughter. He shared stories of the wild, his drawings adorning the walls. The clue that started it all, that extra O, had brought her son back. As they sat together, she whispered, "You're home, Benny." He smiled, and for the first time in decades, peace settled over them. If this heartwarming conclusion touched you, smash that like button right now and subscribe for more incredible stories. Turn on notifications to join us next time.